Okay, we're going to get started because we got to finish by 5. They're going to close the doors on us. So this is our panel discussion and questions from the audience section. So I got my friend Art over here. We used to work in Edinburgh. Were you ever involved with the UFO festival in Edinburgh?
2021.
2020. That was a very good. Well, no, actually, that was the year after the
right
pandemic. Was that the outdoor one?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, that was the one at the golf park.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
Okay, so Art is got the mic, and if you have a question, he'll bring it down. This is for purposes of our video, so we can get the question that you have on the video. So he's gonna bring that, and we can all answer your question, or if you have a specific one of us that you'd like to address it, we'll be happy to.
Well, hello, how you doing? I'm Donato. Everybody calls me Donut, and I'm a member of MUFON. So
Good.
it's nice to have you guys here. My question is probably both to all three of you, and I think I discussed it with Daniel earlier. Which has always been curious because every time we have incidents of UFOs and UFO crashes, and especially Aurora, I mean, it seems very ironic to me that a windmill can destroy a spaceship. Are they that flimsy, or I mean, or do this alien have cheap UFO or equipment? I just find it ironic that something as a windmill, like especially when you depict it, like took down this object,
Yeah, it's really curious to think, that these supposed high intelligences are succumbing to, mundane human technology like a windmill. I would just say that aside from any potential secretive aviation by, people, humans, government, military, all of that, aside from when we know that those things have crashed, any of the reported cases that over many years that describe something more otherworldly or non-human, if there's any legitimacy to any of those, and I tend to think that there may be, and right now it's a big topic in the media, there's a whistleblower that's come forward to testify before Congress about various compartmentalized groups within the military as well as private contractors who have been actively involved in crash retrieval programs and the recovery of technology and bodies. That's what's been claimed. I think it would be incredible if that really is the case. Right now it looks like they're digging into that. I think that, if there are any real cases out there that are dealing with crashed technology that's non-human, that would obviously be pretty earth-changing, in our view of history and society. But I think that we also have to be careful of stories that either are hoaxes, that are misidentifications, misinterpretations, or are just actually terrestrial-based technology by paramilitary and covert government or military projects that are not acknowledged publicly that maybe did crash or something. I mean that could very well be the case for some of them, and I would say that otherwise it is a really ironic situation to think that if in the event aliens are coming from across anywhere in the universe here, and they had the technology to do that, however that might work, that they would succumb to some kind of a crash. But it should make us wonder what's really going on, if there are real cases or if there's something else. But let's pay attention because this is a really active item in government. I wanted to see if Noah and Stephen could share a little bit on that too.
I just want to quickly say, Donato, that when we landed on the moon with the original moon missions, the limb was made of such a thin fabric that the astronauts had to be careful because they could put their foot right through it. It was a very thin substance. We don't know the actual construction of these alien spacecraft. They come to an environment that's different than what they're accustomed to. We don't know if their technology is so sophisticated that they don't need to have very tough hulls. It could be, my personal belief is that they don't send sentient beings, that what they send are clones or fabricated beings that have been genetically modified to live in our environment, because our environment is not like their environment. So they are clones or remotely operated robotic beings that appear humanoid in form, but are not sentient beings. So what happened with Aurora, it could have been a case where they lost control of it. There appears to be, it's possible that they were already having trouble navigating that craft prior to it crashing with the windmill. So it could have exploded at about the same time it hit the windmill, or might have exploded prior to hitting the windmill, and it was just a coincidence that it happened right there at Judge Proctor's windmill. There's a lot of possible explanations, but what I always tell people, because I've done a number of stories on UFO crashes, is that we can't assume that the aliens are infallible. They don't have any special powers. They're operating in a hostile environment with which they are not well familiar with. They're in a totally different environment, and they're very likely, these craft are remotely operated. These are not the masters of the craft. They are being remotely operated, and they have, in my opinion, they're not sentient life forms that are in the craft that come here.
I appreciate it. And I'd like to add real quick. I mean, we go back to biblical times, when you did Ezekiel and certain things that are already written thousands of years ago. Could these beings have been here for so long, and that even though they're highly intelligent, but like age is catching up to their equipment?
Well, I think when you're talking about the type of spacecraft that they're flying, I think I was talking to you just about our spacecrafts in our, which are modern for us, and the most recent ones. And then last week we had 2 different lunar spacecrafts that one made it to the moon and landed just, I think, a day or 2 ago, and the Japanese one, and because it landed on a hillside, it's not working properly because it's not giving the power it needs from their solar batteries. And then the last one had a fuel leak, and it ended up burning up in the atmosphere, re-entering it over Australia. So when I was talking about the Cowboys and aliens, some of their spacecraft, they said were balls of fire and exploded. Well, maybe when they were re-entering the atmosphere, like a lot of our spacecraft, they burn up in the atmosphere if they're not coming in at the right angle and the right speed. Our atmosphere, it ends up like when you see a meteor hits our atmosphere, and it could be very large, and by the time it hits the Earth, it's just a little pin drop type pebble thing. So if they're these pieces they pick up that they think is like thin pieces of aluminum stuff that a lot of them have retrieved, then yes, they might be very fragile in nature. And if they weren't intending on landing here, if they were intending on just orbiting the Earth, or something got sucked in by the gravity, they may not have been equipped for entering our atmosphere and doing a landing on our planet if they're from some other world. So that's my kind of theory or explanation, but I'm not an engineer or anything, so I can't really do all the technology explanations about that.
We thought you were an engineer too. Good question, Donato.
It's just a shame that to travel all this distance to I personally would expect more.
Yeah, we tend to think of these guys as being infallible, being, Superman, but we don't know, and they may not be the actual ones that are coming here. They're probably sending their clones. We have another question. I saw somebody right over here, the gentleman in the red.
First place, I thank very much for you three coming here and giving us this opportunity to learn quite a bit about
Thank you.
all this unbelievable subject, you know. Okay, I'm gonna say that about 10 years ago, Tim Smith, the local weatherman, said at 4 a.m. you can see very, very brightly the satellite coming from west to southeast, he said. So I was in South Padre Island, maybe 10 miles north of South Padre Island, in the beach, laying down, waiting for the satellite, and then suddenly I see it coming very bright, brighter than Venus. And then behind, approximately like that, like here is the satellite, and here, maybe 5-6 seconds behind, was another exactly like the satellite, bright, at the same speed. When it got right over South Padre Island, it turned right 90 degrees in about 3 seconds. So can you imagine the G forces to turn in 3 seconds 90 degrees? So when they announced in Houston they're going to have a conference, we went with my wife. We paid $300 to have a breakfast with the famous astronauts. So I told him what happened. Basically, he told me I have seen nothing, and then he refused to continue. So I want you to tell me what in the hell did I see?
Well, thank you. That's a very good question. And
Why the astronaut didn't want to talk to me?
okay, NASA being a government agency, they have always had their astronauts and their personnel. And I have to put Mike Fossen, who is a McAllen boy, and I like him a lot. I've had many conversations, but he is not at liberty to speak about anything related to, they sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they are not allowed to speak about anything pertaining to the possibility that the Earth is being visited by extraterrestrials. They are not to touch on that subject. Yet we have many, many instances where footage has leaked about NASA taking photographs of strange objects. We've had leaked communications of where the astronauts are saying to other astronauts, "What is that thing? It's approaching our space station," you know. So we have all these instances of where apparently something's out there, but they are not allowed to speak about it. So we will not know the truth until the government, the federal government and NASA, which is part of it, will be allowed or forced to disclose this information, which is part of what is happening now with the whistleblower, the congressional testimonies, and all of this. Some of the truth is slowly being dragged out like sucking a camel through a straw. It's not going to be easy. It may take years or decades. Everybody wants it to happen like now because we're in the generation of now. You can bring up a web page and find out anything about anything, but it's not going to happen like that. It's going to be a slow, dragged out process. What do you think, Ed?
Just a few quick comments. First, what you brought up reminded me, just for everyone who not only is down here, but anywhere, I guess up north as well, we're going to have the solar eclipse on April 8th.
Yeah.
So why I mentioned that is because the way you started that out was the weatherman had described what seemed to be like a meteorological phenomenon that turned out to be something maybe different. And so it's good to be observant of those types of things. Also, SpaceX has Starlink satellites all over the sky, and people will continue to see that for years and still not know what it is. I don't know what you saw, but I will say that we do know that private military and aerospace contractors have technology that is not in the public sector. Maybe it can do some of those things, like take those turns. It's probably not using conventional propulsion or systems that a person would, sit in to withstand the G-force of those types of things. I would think that if there is a person, a human inside of something that's doing that, if there even is a human, and it's not remote or something like what Noe was saying, it would have to have some process of keeping them intact physically in order to withstand such force like 90-degree turns. So aside from prosaic explanations like a potentially exotic military or aerospace contractor, I think those are high possibilities of things that people do see. But other than that, I think that maybe there could be something non-human that people are observant of. When it comes to officials speaking upon these things, maybe like NASA, the space station commander at the time, Leroy Chow, actually described seeing something from the space station. He's been outspoken about it, and sometimes he's not said anything, and other times he's tried to come forward and say, we did see UFOs from the ISS. So I think that there are some discrepancies between, like what Noe was saying, some people who have basically something like a security oath to uphold, which they cannot describe certain things in non-disclosure agreement. That can actually be a very big legal thing, and that's what's happening right now with the congressional situation, why they have to go into private skips, which is a room where there's no way to keep track of things, so people can't record it. But I think it's really important to know that people such as yourself have been seeing these things for many years, and that sometimes are reluctant to come forward or have no other way to describe it to someone that they don't know that something like MUFON or a research organization about this phenomenon exists. I think that, I think most people would like to think an astronaut might be the go-to person for all things meteorological or space-related or something like that. But to think that he didn't say anything at all, I think speaks more than if he just said it's just a weather balloon or something. So there could be a lot more to it, to what you saw than something mundane.
Well, going back, what he was saying about the government talking, I taught elementary school and stuff, and some of the questions the kids ask me, a lot of times they say, you need to go home and ask your mom and dad. That question, that's how I get out of answering those. So when they're talking to the government and if they don't know the answer, I don't know if they'd be embarrassed by it, saying I don't know, or if they would just flat come out and say, we don't know what that is, or maybe we're investigating that. So maybe when you ask that question, either he didn't want to say, I have no idea what that is, or maybe he did know what it could be, but like Noe was saying, is not allowed to talk about it. So it's hard to say one way or the other what an answer, like what they would want to answer that question.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one last quick comment by Daniel.
Well, I'll just say that it's important to pay attention to what's going on right now. Not necessarily to say wholeheartedly believe everything you hear on the news and all of that, of course, but it's really important to know that right now, as Noe had mentioned as well, that the congressional hearings taking place regarding what is referred to as UAP in government terms, that's unidentified anomalous phenomena, which is a very fully encompassing issue now. The whistleblower David Grush is coming forward with a lot of really big claims. The challenge is, as he said, a lot of people want that to be made public immediately. The other issue is you have the Pentagon's group AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is the current UFO investigation group, which was recently, they just had their head person, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, leave. And he just published an op-ed in, I think, Scientific American, which is completely contradictory to all of David Grush's claims, saying that there's no evidence to support that anything that they've received points to extraterrestrial phenomena. And I'm not saying that you should believe that or that that's the real case. That's what this person, who is the head of the government's UFO program, has said, which is in direct contradiction to this other whistleblowers coming forward and saying the government not only knows that UFOs are real, but has intact craft and bodies. So either they're both telling what they think is the truth, they're both lying, or they're both completely misinformed. There's a lot of possibilities. But I would just say it's important to pay attention to what's going on right now, because it's either going to, be used to facilitate some political interest, but also any type of idea of disclosure, as Noah said, I don't think it's going to be an instantaneous event. I think that, as with most social movements, it's going to be a generational process that's going to probably take a long time, and we, again, just need to pay attention to what's happening in the news.
We hope to see you all at Edinburgh UFO Conference in April 5th and 6th, and we appreciate all of you being here today. We love talking about this and could take another 10 hours talking about it, but we're going to stop now. Thank you all for attending. If anybody would like copies of the books, if anybody would like tickets to the Edinburgh Conference, they're right out there. And thanks again. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, I know.